Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And it's our unit on animals for this month as we begin the month of October. And October, of course, contains Halloween at the end of the month. And, of course, Halloween involves lots of scary creatures like ghosts and vampires and bats. So bats are what we are going to be talking about in today's lesson.
Yeah, bats have always kind of scared me. I guess because if they bite you, you're supposed to get, was it rabies?
Yep.
Yeah, so I've been around a few bats in my life going into caves. You know, there are lots of fun caves in my area of the United States. And we ran into a cave that had some bats, and it was scary, but they didn't bite any of us. We're going to look at some of bats' surprising benefits, some good things that they have to bring. I've only thought of the bad things, so this will be interesting. We're going to go ahead and read through today's lesson first.
Bats often have a bad reputation because they can carry viruses associated with serious diseases like COVID-19. While they may seem scary, bats actually contribute to the environment in an essential way. They help create new generations of plants through the transfer of pollen, a sticky substance inside flowers that helps produce new seeds. One example of this is the Weber azul agave plant found in Mexico. It's the only plant used to make tequila, a popular type of liquor. The Mexican long-nosed bat feeds on its nectar, the sweet liquid from a flower, and transports pollen from one flower to another. Without bats, the agave plant would struggle to survive. Turning to the tropical islands of Fiji and Vanuatu, we find the kuluva flower, another plant that depends on bats. Its flowers have a dome-shaped structure that prevents larger animals from accessing their nectar. However, Fijian blossom bats have cleverly learned to chew through the dome. The bats then carry the pollen away with them after their sweet snack. This is especially important because the kuluva plant doesn't open its flowers by itself, and also because it only receives pollen on one night of its brief existence. Bats play a significant role in maintaining a balanced environment. Let's appreciate these winged creatures for their efforts in supporting various plant species. Okay, it's time for us to discuss the contents of our lesson for today. We're talking about bats, and they are unlikely heroes, okay, because we often think of bats as being something kind of scary. We want to stay away from them. They carry rabies. They use them in horror movies all the time. But they are actually heroes. They actually are beneficial to people, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. They have some surprising benefits, which are things that are good for us that we probably didn't know before.
So bats often have a bad reputation. What's a reputation? That's what people think about when they think of you. And you can have a good reputation or a bad reputation. Just using reputation is neutral, so be careful with that word. Why do they have a bad reputation or a bad rap? Sometimes you'll hear that kind of slang phrase. Yeah, they have a bad rap. Because they carry viruses and no one wants to get sick. The sickness that Tom and I mentioned, rabies, is very dangerous. Also, raccoons carry rabies. When I was growing up, we had a raccoon. My cousins had a raccoon that lived in the neighborhood, and it had rabies. So I was introduced to what rabies can do long ago. Well, they can carry viruses, these bats, and they were associated with COVID-19 when COVID-19 came out. I don't know if we can blame it on bats anymore, though.
Well, bats have all sorts of viruses, which of course are things that carry diseases. They're much smaller than bacteria and they behave in different ways. But in any case, we all know what viruses are because of COVID-19. I think SARS was also a virus as well.
And just the common cold is a virus.
It certainly is. And so that's what a virus is. And yes, indeed, these bats are associated with these diseases. We think of these diseases when we think of bats.
Yeah.
And while they may seem scary, bats actually contribute to the environment in an essential way. So while here just means even though it's true that they may seem scary, still, bats are actually beneficial to the environment. They contribute to the environment, in an important or essential way.
Yeah, that's important to remember. You know, all of these bugs, spiders, weeds that you get in your garden, they're there for a reason. So we need to be careful if we try to eliminate those things that kind of bug us or are seen as pests or gross. So they help create new generations of plants. How? Well, they transfer pollen. Pollen's a sticky substance inside flowers, and that helps produce new seeds. We want plants or we won't have anything to eat. So think of that when you kind of get the creepies when you look at these bats. So pollen is that sticky substance. If something's sticky, it kind of makes your hands like stick to something. That's where we get this adjective sticky from. If something sticks to something else, it kind of doesn't want to separate too easily. Glue can be kind of sticky. If you've got some candy that's got a lot of sugar in it, it can be very sticky. Little kids often have sticky hands that moms and dads have to wash quite a bit because they're always touching everything.
That's what pollen is. It's a sticky substance that is inside of flowers, and pollen helps produce new seeds. So it's important. If you don't have seeds, you don't have new plants, and then there's nothing to eat, and everybody dies. And that's the end of the world. Now, moving on now to the next paragraph, it says, one example of this is the Weber azul agave plant found in Mexico. It's the only plant used to make tequila, a popular type of liquor. So, yes, we've got an example of this where bats help create new generations of plants by using pollen. This happens in Mexico. We've got this agave plant. It's a special species of agave plant, and it's found in Mexico, and it's used to make tequila. It's the only plant they use to make tequila. If we don't have this special species of agave plant, you can't be drinking tequila with your friends in a Mexican bar.
Oh no, what will I do? So they're useful because they, again, are helping to transport this pollen from flower to flower. Here it says the Mexican long-nosed bat. Kind of picture that in your mind. I don't know what the long-nosed bat looks like, but it feeds on its nectar. It feeds on the nectar found in these agave plants that are really native to the southern U.S. and tropical areas in that continent there. So, yeah, it feeds on. To feed on, we use when we talk about how animals get their food. We don't talk about humans feeding on something else unless it's a scary movie and we're talking about maybe zombies or vampires feeding on human flesh. But we usually just use it for animals. So don't use feed on to talk about maybe giving your new little born baby some milk. It doesn't feed on mama's milk. It eats or drinks mama's milk. So feeds on is a verb phrase that you'll use just with animals primarily. It just means to give food to someone.
And this particular bat is looking for something to eat. Of course, bats need to eat things in order to have energy so they can fly around and stuff like that. So the bat, this particular species of bat, feeds on the nectar of the Weber azul agave plant, which again is used to make tequila, which is a kind of liquor like whiskey and gin and vodka and things like that.
Hard liquor, we would call it, yeah.
Indeed. And of course, then after it feeds on the nectar, it transports pollen from one flower to another. Now, nectar and pollen are very similar, but they are different things. The nectar, of course, is the liquid in a flower, and then you've got the powder, which is the pollen. And I suppose if you eat the nectar, you get the pollen with it. So then as the bats move from one plant to another, they take the pollen with it, and then the pollen will do we say fertilize the plant? Or
yeah.
It will make sure the plant can grow another generation.
That's pretty important. Transport here is a verb. It can also be used as a noun. I've seen more people from the UK use transport as a noun more than Americans. We say transportation if we need a noun, but they'll often talk about their transport, whereas we'll just talk about our transportation. So this is the verb, though. So if you want to be really accurate, you'll say transport. with a heavier or stronger symbol on port. And then the noun is just transport, and it flips. The stronger syllable is on trans. Sorry about that. It gets kind of crazy. So without bats, the agave plant would struggle to survive. We couldn't have any more agave plants if they weren't able to continue having the bats transfer the pollen and then producing new seeds. So it's pretty important. I would say that's a big benefit, and I'd never heard of them actually transporting pollen before. I thought bats just stayed in caves, Tom.
Oh, no, they come out at dusk. Okay, there's a good example of that here in Taiwan. If you go to Reifang, which is east of Keelung, there's a cave there next to the road, and if you're there at the right time, all these bats will be flying out right at dusk. I've seen that a couple of times. It's quite amazing to see.
So they sleep during the day?
In the cave, indeed.
They
and then
hang upside down sleeping.
Right. And then they come out at night.
Ooh.
Yeah, they come out and look for insects at night, so they're very important to the ecosystem.
Yeah.
I did want to say that the word pollen, of course, is like the powder in a flower. And, of course, when you move pollen into another plant, you pollinate that plant. I just said fertilize, but I think pollinate is more appropriate for that particular phenomenon. Okay, that brings us to the midway point in our lesson for today. Let's take a break and listen now to our Chinese teacher.
Hello everyone, 我是派老师。今天讲解的课程是12月2号 Unit 1-1 Unlikely Heroes Bats Surprising Benefits。这个单元是一篇克漏字测验，内容和蝙蝠有关。不晓得有多少同学看过真正的蝙蝠？看过真正的蝙蝠，或许有助于我们正确认识这种生物，会觉得蝙蝠就和其他生命都一样，是大自然的一部分。可是如果没有在现实生活当中见过真正的蝙蝠，很有可能会受到小说电影的影响，觉得蝙蝠是可怕的生物。可是事实上，蝙蝠是生态环境中非常重要的一环，它们可以帮助植物繁衍后代。好，我们现在一起来解题，同时看看背后有趣的故事。请先看第一题，前一句提到，尽管蝙蝠可能看起来令人害怕，但它们实际上对环境有重大贡献，透过传播花粉，帮助植物传宗接代。从 a sticky substance 开始是同位语，补充说明 pollen 花粉是什么。pollen 是花朵内部一种粘性物质，再以关系子句 that helps produce new seeds 描述这种粘性物质有助于产生新种子。因此第一题选 A that helps。请注意冠带 that 代替的是 substance 第三人称单数，而非 flowers， 所以动词 help 要加上 s。再来，请看第二段，提到邵氏长鼻蝠 Mexican long-nosed bat 以墨西哥蓝色龙舌兰的甜液 nectar 为食，因而会帮龙舌兰传递花粉。接着是第二题，空格蝙蝠，蓝色龙舌兰将难以生存。从前后文寻找答题线索，4个选项当中 D 最符合前后文的文意。第二题选 D without 表示如果没有蝙蝠，蓝色龙舌兰将难以生存。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. This is our animal unit, and we're focusing on kind of a scary little animal today, a bird, a type of bird. Is it called a bird?
I don't think so. I think it's a different species. It's not really a kind of bird.
It's kind of weird. It does fly, and it's got those wings and webbed feet, and they hang upside down when they sleep at night. And as Tom was just sharing before the break, there's a place near Keelung where you can go and see all of these bats emerge from a cave around dusk. Dusk is the time of day just as the sun is setting.
Exactly. Okay, so we're talking about bats in our program today because this is October and Halloween occurs On the last day of Halloween, on the last day of October, I should say, excuse me. And again, we talked about their contribution, especially when making tequila, if you're a fan of having these drinks with tequila sunrise, and there are various other cocktails you can make from tequila, which comes from Mexico. It's a popular kind of liquor, and remember, there's a species of bat there that feeds on the nectar of the Weber azul agave plant. And without bats, the agave plant would not survive, or at least it would struggle to survive. It would be very difficult for that plant to survive. And then you'd probably have to choose mezcal over tequila or some other kind of spirit if you're into those sorts of things. Mexican beer is not bad either. You could get drunk on that if you want to, but we don't encourage that. But
no.
In any case, let's move on now to the next paragraph. It says, turning to the tropical islands of Fiji and Vanuatu, we find the kuluva flower, another plant that depends on bats. So if you talk about a tropical island, you're talking about an island in the tropics, which are areas of the Earth either south of the Tropic of Cancer or north of the Tropic of Capricorn. Taiwan is right on the Tropic of Cancer, so we describe Taiwan as a subtropical place. But the Philippines and Indonesia and Brazil and places like that would be tropical areas.
Right. So you've probably heard of Fiji, Vanuatu. You don't hear about so much, but it became an independent country. It was kind of administered over by Britain and France previous to that. But yeah, it's in the southwestern Pacific Ocean. So tropical islands. When I think of tropical islands, I think of delicious tasting fruit where the weather's hot, but it rains a lot. You probably have a lot of greenery around. So that's where you would find this kuluva flower. And it's another plant like the agave plant in Mexico that really needs or depends on bats. Its flowers have a dome-shaped structure that prevents larger animals from accessing their nectar. Ooh, it makes it hard for those little other animals to get in there and get that sweet nectar. Dome-shaped, a dome. Think of a basketball that you play basketball with and cut it in half. Half of that basketball is a dome shape. A lot of times if you go traveling and you're looking at old cathedrals, especially in Europe, they'll have dome-shaped roofs or dome-shaped buildings. So that's what this particular flower looks like. I haven't seen it, so I'm curious to see what it looks like. And that shape alone keeps larger animals from getting at that nectar that they so want to eat because it tastes delicious.
Yep, it's got this structure in the flower, and it's like a dome, and it stops animals, at least stops larger animals, from getting to the nectar. However, Fijian blossom bats have cleverly learned to chew through the dome. Okay, so these bats are quite clever. They know there's nectar in there. Maybe they can smell it, but they see that there's this dome there. But the bats are thinking, hey, we've got little teeth here. We can chew through that dome and get at that nectar. No problem. And so these blossom bats, that's another species of bat here. They're very clever, very smart. They can chew through that dome and get at the nectar.
Yeah, you'll often see animals chewing through different things. Maybe you have a new puppy who has decided he likes to chew through your shoes in your closet. Sometimes that happens. You got to be careful. These bats, if you look at pictures of bats, you can see they've got these kind of creepy teeth. I just think they're creepy looking. But, this makes sense that they've figured out how to get to that nectar that they really want. And I think Tom's right. I think they probably can smell it. And so they think, I can see if I can just chew through that. So the bats then carry the pollen away with them after their sweet snack. Oh, fun. So that's how they get to the pollen. They chew through the dome-shaped structure. They get at the nectar, and then they fly away with the pollen on their bodies. So this is especially important, it says, because the kuluva plant doesn't open its flowers by itself. Oh, and that's where the nectar or the pollen is, guys. Those flowers have to bloom and open before their little insects or or animals like bats can get in there and get at the pollen and then carry that from plant to plant and pollinate the other plants as they, journey on their way.
All right, so this looks like a mutually beneficial situation. The bats get a little snack from the nectar, and then the plant gets to have its pollen distributed to another flower to pollinate that flower. So it's kind of a win-win situation for both the flower and the bats, okay? And this is a unique situation in Fiji and Vanuatu there because this happens there with bats. So that's another benefit of having bats around. Don't be so scared of them. And now let's move on to the final paragraph where we wrap things up. It says, bats play a significant role in maintaining a balanced environment. Now remember, if you play a role in something, you are acting out a role, you are behaving in a certain way that helps people or helps things get accomplished. You have your responsibility. So the bats are important in order to maintain a balanced environment. Remember, there is the environment that has to be balanced. Different animals feed on other animals, and then you have the circle of life, the chain, and so everything can exist. If that chain is broken or interrupted, then we're going to have some problems.
Right, and that's why it's really important not to disturb the ecosystem in your area. I know they're trying to experiment on, say, mosquitoes in the U.S. Bill Gates was trying to change the DNA of these mosquitoes, and now we have malaria in parts of the U.S. that we never had before. I think it's really important as science progresses that we don't mess with nature. I think Tom and I grew up with a commercial growing up, and it was "Don't mess with Mother Nature."
Well, she actually said it's not nice to fool Mother
Nature. And then she would, use her powers to strike lightning. And it was just a good reminder that our Earth is perfect as it is, and when we try to mess with it, it messes up the ecosystem in the area. I know I did a documentary in Taiwan about animals trying to cross the road that were being hit all the time by cars and scooters and stuff, and they actually constructed a little safe tunnel for the animals to cross because it was messing up the ecosystem. So I know Taiwan's very careful about not disturbing Mother Nature.
Right, and again, we're talking about bats, and they are winged creatures, so we need to appreciate these winged creatures for their efforts in supporting various plant species.
Yeah.
If something's winged, well, it has wings, okay? So bats fly because they have wings, and remember, they're not considered the same as birds, but in any case, bats are pretty important to the ecosystem, and again, they are winged creatures, they have wings, and if we talk about various things, we talk about different kinds of various things, many different kinds of things. And so, yes, we've got different species of plants that bats help pollinate. There are probably other examples as well, more than the two examples we gave today.
Yeah, this various is a great word. You can use it just to talk about things that are slightly different from each other, but sort of in the same category, right? So maybe you have lots of dresses in various colors. So you have lots of different colors. So here we want to help support the bats in their effort to continue to pollinate and produce the good benefits that they have in the past. They're not all bad, and now I know that bats don't have to be spooky and scary only. They do have an important role in our ecosystem, which is great to remember.
And remember, there's a cave on the northeast coast there that has bats coming out at dusk. And when I went there, I think we went there twice, and no bats attacked me at all. So it's perfectly safe to sit there and watch the bats coming out of that cave. It's quite an amazing phenomenon.
It would be a good picture, I think, to get a photo of that.
It's kind of hard to photograph because they're moving so fast, and there are so many of them. But you can do something. I suggest doing a video of that. It's quite amazing.
Cool.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. Let's listen now to our Chinese teacher.
再来，请看第三段。在斐济和万纳度这些热带岛屿，有另一种依赖蝙蝠的植物——库鲁瓦花 （Kuluva flower）。接着是第三题题干，这是单字题。我们看4个选项，哪个最符合前后文的文意 ？A 是提醒 ，B 是防止 C 是取代 D 是说服。考量前后文连贯，第三题答案应该选 B， 表示 Kuluva flower 的花朵有圆顶状结构，防止大型动物接触它的花蜜。紧接着，然而长尾果蝠 Fijian blossom bats 巧妙地学会穿过这种圆顶状的结构来吃花蜜。享受完甜点之后，蝙蝠便携带花粉离开。这对库鲁瓦花尤其重要，因为它们是没有办法自行张开花朵。And also because it only receives pollen on one night of its brief 空格。第四题一样是单字题，我们看4个选项，哪个最符合前后文的文意？ A 是安排， B 是引导， C 是存在， D 是要求。根据前后文，第四题应该选 C existence 存在。这句话的意思是，而且也因为它只在短暂存在的一夜接收花粉。再来，请看第4段，蝙蝠在维持环境平衡中扮演着相当重要的角色。第5题一样也是单字题，我们看4个选项，哪个最符合前后文的文意？好， A approach 是接近， B appreciate 感激或欣赏， C capture 是捕捉， D circulate 是流通或循环的意思。根据前后文，第5题应该选 B appreciate， 这表示让我们好好的感激这些有翅膀的生物，它们在维持各种植物物种生存所做出的努力。好，以上就是我们针对这一篇克漏字测验所做的中文讲解，谢谢大家。
That's all the time we have for today, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully we have given you a new appreciation for bats. Don't be scared of them, even though they are scary at certain Halloween parties. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.